Hello, everyone, and welcome to Augmented Engineering in Action, the series where we show you how companies are really working with AI. I'm Scott Carey, and I'm your host today. I'm the editor-in-chief here at Lead Dev, and this is our third session of this series where we're really digging into how a bunch of engineers are actually using various AI tools and agents to build things, and they're actually going to show you what they've built and how they did it. So I'm really excited for this session today with Angela Daniels from DXC. She's going to introduce herself in a second and tell you a little bit about what they've been up to at DXC. But as always, I'm also joined by Matt Ball from Augment Code. Matt, how are you doing today?
Doing good, thanks, Scott. Yeah, super excited to have another one of these sessions. It's awesome to have Angela here, and we've had a sneak peek, but really excited for this to be shared more widely. So yeah, looking forward to the conversation today.
Nice. So I'm really keen to get into it. But Angela, tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do at DXC.
Awesome, awesome. Well, hello everybody. I am the global offering lead for software development at DXC. DXC is a Fortune 500 company that we support a lot of other Fortune 500 companies in their IT services. My role at DXC as the offering lead for software development is twofold. From an outside perspective, I am representing software development to our customers and what that means at DXC. And from an inward perspective, I'm working with our teams on how we're going to use AI in order to make software development better.
Nice. And tell us a little bit about when did it's hard to remember a world where AI tools and AI agents weren't just kind of part of the conversation, but it was only a few years ago when they weren't. So for you, when did the possibilities of these tools start to become apparent to you? When did you start to get really excited about these?
Yeah, I would say as a company, and we got really excited from the very beginning, right? When ChatGPT came out and just really understanding what the capabilities were. We started with really focusing on AI assisted, like how could we assist our development teams with, the chats or different tools in order to remove friction. We've matured over the last couple of years, and I would say in the last year and a half, been really excited because we've seen the results now of how these tools are impacting our SDLCs.
Yeah, nice. We're definitely going to see that maturity kind of on full show when you switch on your VS Code in a second here. But I'm interested in was it? It sounds like you're as an organization, you're very bought in, but was that very top down? Was it very bottom up? Was it a bit of a mix? Like where were the pockets of interest here?
I would say it was a bit of a mix. So one of the things that we did at DXC is we redefined all of our offerings across our consulting and engineering services to be what we call powered by AI. And that happened about a year and a half ago, where we wanted to understand how we were going to embed AI into our services. Now you'll see in the coming months of how we're looking at that holistically across DXC there. And so that has been, our focus of how we've been pulling AI into the services.
Yeah, and it's clearly so embedded in the way you work already. Like how quickly did what was your journey like? When did this become kind of really natural to you? And how quickly were you on board, or was there that initial moment of doubt of kind of pushback?
I think I call myself a visionary because I saw the capability in the tools, I think, before they were really all the way there, right? And seeing some of the other tools that were on the market, I understood where we were going, and I continuously where we headed as it relates to being AI augmented, driving to being very AI native there in the ability to have autonomy within the SDLC. We will see that maturing, and so um, it always excites me. I will tell you, this is year 25 for me in development, and what these tools are able to do. It makes me want to put my hands on keyboard on a daily basis, and so
I'm hearing so much more of that. I'm hearing so many more engineers or engineering leaders. Like here at Lead Dev, we speak to a lot of people who haven't been hands-on keyboard for a while. They're either managers or they're managers or they're staff plus, and they don't have as much time anymore to do it. And they're definitely like finding these tools to give them that ability to get back into the code base a little bit, or just try things that they maybe didn't have time to in the past. It really seems to shorten that path to learning about a new technology or trying something out. And it sounds like kind of a DXC that's really embraced.
Absolutely.
And then I think the kind of switch from the coding assistant like era here to the agent era was like we're still right in the middle of that, and I think it's a big change for engineers to adapt to. Tell us a little bit about when you kind of started to make that switch in thinking towards agents or agentic capabilities, and where does Augment come into the picture there? Because it's clearly a kind of key tool for you.
Yeah, I would say January. And I think the market was really driving in January to say agentic AI. Um, I would say it exploded around February, March of this year in bringing agentic AI into the software development lifecycle. What we see at DXC, we have uh, 50,000 plus developers, and we're working to enable those developers to use agentic software engineers. Um, and our goal is about 40% being really trained, deeply understanding how to leverage that in the SDLC. And so yeah, that is the path in terms of the excitement for me because I have hands on the keyboard. Like I will tell you, there's not a week that goes by that I'm working on some type of code, which my role is far removed from that. But um, in doing so, the excitement of what I'm able to build in just a short amount of time now is I'm going to be deep in code, right? For the next, at least next couple of years, I see myself there.
Yeah, it definitely seems to have kind of shortened your path to value, and it seems to have really exploded the amount of people that can kind of bring ideas to the table or start to push a project forward. And I think we're going to see that in a second. Angela, before we kind of dig into some of the specifics of what you've been working on, do you want to just tell us a little bit about the sort of clients that you work with at DXC and some of the projects where you've really started to bring these capabilities to bear?
Sure. Yeah, within DXC, DXC is often when I talk to clients, it's the company that you don't know, right? But we are running a lot of the critical applications as well as innovative applications that you use every day. And so if you're on a flight with American Airlines or United Airlines, you've used a DXC application there. If you have a bank account that's Bank of America or Wells Fargo, there's been a critical application that DXC has built called Hogan that's a part of that. So we have this long history in terms of the companies coming together and building what is now DXC, and we help clients end to end, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's applications, cybersecurity. We help clients reimagine what's next as well because we have that understanding of the critical applications as well as the legacy applications. We're able to speak from a place of how do you modernize or transform your business, and we're really excited with doing this with AI right now.
Nice. And I mean, I'm English and I'm a football fan, so I'm familiar with DXC because they sponsor Manchester United Football Club.
Yes.
That's my first interaction with DXC as a
and,
brand.
and we've built that app. So if you use that app, that is a DXC app that we've built. So yes.
They're definitely not my team, but they're a team.
Okay. Okay.
Great, Angela. I think it'd be really cool to get into it. I think you're going to talk to us about kind of two big projects here today. Do you want to set the context a little bit about kind of what you were working on with? And these are both government related kind of projects, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so I'll talk about two projects that we've worked on, and then I, of course, would like to show you in the code base there. But our journey with using Augment Code is, again, we always scan the market on what's new, what's out there, and what's effective so that we can take that back to our clients. And there was a developer, if Susan, if she's listening, I want to shout her out because she was the one who actually brought Augment Code to me after I was evaluating various AI code generators on the market. Our team was in this full evaluation. And there was one particular use case where the code generators that were on the market just really wasn't doing the job. And I immediately picked up Augment Code and was able to have this full context. It was probably the first, now you see this in the code generators now, but it was the first code generator that it felt like I had passed it on to a junior engineer, right? It was doing end to end where it was basically taking the requirement, it was testing in the terminal, it was writing tests for me. And so because of that, I immediately personally got a Augment Code license, and then we started bringing that into some of our projects to really understand how this will work. And so, two projects that we've done. One was with an environmental health and safety product that we have been creating, and as well as the NOPD, which is New Orleans Police Department there. So those are the two kind of high level projects that we've worked through.
Great. And before we get into the detail, I also just want to remind everyone that this is an interactive session. So at the bottom of your Zoom client, there is a Q&A button, and you can put some questions in there that hopefully Angela, Matt, and I can get to towards the end of the session. But yeah, Angela, do you want to pull up your screen and show us what you've been working on?
Absolutely. Let me know when you can.
Yeah, I can see. So this is the first project you're working on, right?
Yes. Yeah. So this is what we're working on is a product, right? And this product is for environmental and health safety. And just to kind of go deep a little bit in the problem, sometimes state agencies don't have the ability to rapidly modernize or get to a newer product as like a business would. In this particular case, we had a problem that we were trying to solve for state agencies that were collecting environmental health safety data. Imagine going into your various buildings that you have and really understanding if there's a asbestos or any other type of environmental challenge that may be there. What we found is that some of these agencies were collecting data in a very fragmented state. And so we wanted to create a product that would allow them to collect data across many different devices, whether it be mobile device, web, as well as have the functionality and features to really drive a workflow there. And so we created this product, and when we initially started to plan and solution this product, we said it was going to take a year to build this. And we got the opportunity to showcase this product, and in doing so, I said, let's bring Augment Code. Let's see, we have the requirements, we have functional technical spec. Let's work it and see how long we can get to at least a beta version of the product. And I don't call it, I know we said MVP. I tend to align more with beta because we intended MVP, but where we got was really more aligned to what you would see in a beta. And so it took us 10 days to develop, and just it really blew our mind and what we were able to achieve in those 10 days.
It's
Nice.
got to be,
yeah, sorry.
sorry, Scott. Yeah, I was going to say it's got to be said that, right, you do these projects all of the time, right? So you know a thing or two about scoping and how long a project should take, right? And it sounds like that was really upended in terms of your expectations. You know, you find yourself landing in this beta phase, and obviously we're seeing that year must be shrunk, right? Is there like some kind of constraints to this, or is this like true speed up? Like, is there any like limitations to keep in mind as we're like thinking about this?
Yeah, I would say that I wouldn't say limitations. I would say what this is allowing us to do is now amplify some of the other things that we would do in the SDLC. So because we were able to shrink, we're able to produce features that may be more aligned to what the client may want, or we're able to do testing at a level that we may not have had in that 1 year time frame. So I would say we're able to do more there than ever before. As it relates to now how we're approaching it. The constraints, if I was to add any constraint, it would be making sure you have a clear understanding of what you're developing there. We oftentimes, when we're kicking off a project like this, we go into a sprint zero where we're really bringing in the architecture and the functional requirements, and do we have everything to get started. We're shrinking that time, but that time is really important to make sure that you're giving the team that what's needed in order to kick off and be successful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. And where did you kind of notice the biggest jumps in pace here? Obviously, that you kind of surprised yourself with that 10-day turnaround, I think. And where were the kind of most notable areas where you were able to move so much faster?
The task that we were able to give to junior developers. So as you see, we had 1 lead and 4 juniors, and we're able to give junior developers. I'll give you an example. We needed to implement a layer of GIS in here, and so we have various buildings that are in an area, and we need to be able to understand across that system their environmental health kind of status, so to speak. I was able to turn to a junior developer and say, we need this implemented, and they were able to implement it like within hours instead of going through maybe a sprint or two to implement. And so that was the like wow factor, to be able to turn to a junior developer, and that junior developer is almost operating like a mid-level developer. So I really think that is what elevated us
Yeah.
to achieve that. Yeah.
Do you think
Nice.
that sorry, Scott. We're
No,
both
all
just
you.
desperate to ask questions here,
I know.
really. Yeah, do you think that, I mean, and it may be some combination, but do you think that for junior developers, this is about like helping them work faster, or is there also like knowledge that they're uncovering through the AI that's like unlocking them to go away and do the things? It's
Yeah.
not just that it's like, effectively typing faster for them. There's like more to it than that.
That's right. If you think about, like, we've all been junior developers, right? If you think about the cadence of a junior developer, it's you give them a small task to do, they go do it, they come back to a lead dev, the lead dev validates, checks it, and does it. You have more of that feedback that's happening with the junior developer in the code generator, like in Augment's case, like that they're able to do, as opposed to that feedback and latency that's happening between, let me go get feedback from the lead dev, let me get, so it's speeding up the loop that we have. I don't, it's not necessarily the coding faster, it's now junior developers can go in and I can ask questions that I may not ask my lead dev, or I may wait some time before I ask my lead dev because I may not be comfortable in what comes back in that answer. And so that's I think the power that it gives to that lower level, right, of the developers.
Nice. And then do you want to tell us a little bit about the NOPD project before
Oh
we
yeah.
get into some code?
Yes, absolutely. So I don't know if I said that I'm based in New Orleans, Louisiana, but we have a center. DXC has a center in New Orleans, and part of our relationship is that we have a relationship with the state of Louisiana, where we are a community partner, and oftentimes we have projects that the state or the community may ask us to advise or to come and partner with, and NOPD was one of those. And so I'll tell you the problem that NOPD had and how we helped them solve that problem is right. They had a problem as it relates to recruiting and getting officers into NOPD, and their way of recruiting is that they have a website, and this website allows them to put information out about NOPD, but the process end to end is very fragmented. You may go here to fill out an application, which is another agency. You may, have some info with NOPD. And one of the things that the challenges that they had was, how can we make this more effective and an experience that's for the recruit, as opposed to a system that they don't know where they are in the recruitment process. And so this really started with design thinking, which is one of the services that we have from our NOLA office. We brought in NOPD to really understand what the challenge was as it relates to the recruitment process. So this is even before coding, right? We're really understanding what the problem it is that we're solving and why it's a problem. In design thinking, we often ask a question on what's at stake. Like, if we don't solve the problem of recruiting, what's at stake? And for the city of New Orleans, for NOPD, it's billions of dollars that are at stake. And the reason why is because NOPD is used to provide safety for things like Mardi Gras and Jazz Fest, or some of the other tourism things that comes into the city of New Orleans. And so we're able to work with them in order to imagine a new process, but also an app. And this was a mobile app that was both in Android and iOS there, as well as a full platform that brought those disparate systems so the recruit can know where they were there. And Scott, I got a little passionate, as you can see, on the problem that we're solving as opposed to the tech. So help me back on course if hopefully I answered your question as it relates to the project here. Maybe I haven't spoken about Augment Code and how it came in. So I want to get back on track here if you have more questions.
No, it's all good. That is useful context. I think it's really good to know like what kind of problem you're trying to solve, and then we can talk about the tools that you kind of brought to the table. Do you want to switch it up and start to show us a few of the things that you've been able to do?
Sure. So what I'll do is I'll show you. We'll switch over to a project here and just kind of talk through how we're using Augment Code there. So one of the things that we do is we have also a platform that we call DXC Converge, is for AI augmented software development. So our focus is not just to how do I speed up coding, but it's how do I speed up the full end-to-end life cycle. So there are tools that, as I talked about the NOPD, and we have design thinking sessions, we're recording those transcripts, we're translating them with AI into functional documentation or technical documents there. And so that becomes a part of our artifacts that then are that we use in order to generate code. And so within this first example, I'm just going to show you, which this is the environmental health one that we implemented. I wanted to just show you the SSO implementation that we did. And again, this implementation was a day here that it took us to implement SSO. And as I talk, I want you to understand the complexity that we're doing in order to implement. So this is an application that's running in AWS, right? But when we look at like the actual SSO or the authentication is happening through our Intra or our Azure AD. And so we were able to create that full system that would also allow us to, whether it's log in web or log in mobile there. So you'll see that through using our application, or excuse me, Augment Code, we were able to create both the front end, so you can see the front end implementation here and some of the components that we have, as well as our login that existed, and role-based access control across different roles, whether it's administrator or inspector. This is also taken into the app that has been created there. And so these are just what was, again, implemented in that implementation that you have, and this will probably be beneficial, just the full step by step that we're creating in order to implement that there, right? So whether it's the sign in, the AWS Cognito that we're using for those roles, the Azure AD that we're using for the actual SAML provider here. This allows us as a blueprint, right? That again, this product that can be taken to many different clients in order to leverage as well. So I'll pause there to see any questions about that. If not, then I can maybe flip over to the next one here. But
Is this something that like I understand that there's requirements gathering and these things that can be used as context, and I'm seeing some mention of like DXC SSO. SSO seems like something you might have had to do in many other projects. Is a piece of this trying to reuse SSO approaches for other things, or is it often really tailored in how you have to do this on a like per project basis?
yeah, so this one was tailored, but to your point, yeah, like we can use this to create patterns that can then be shared across the organization. So if someone wants to, I'm implementing an application that's in AWS, but also I'm logging in through AD, then now you have the pattern. So we can abstract and pull this pattern from here, there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you starting to build some kind of central place of these resources? Like, are you documenting approaches, or like these are some gold standard repos or projects that are good to reuse or think of as like a base level of context?
Yeah.
How are you thinking about that?
Yeah, so we already have some of that. We are definitely improving that baseline kind of repository. I will say that one of the things that we are also doing is that we have a prompt repository, so that we're, creating a repository of prompts by technology, by industry, so that we can reuse those across various projects that exist. And so now, if I am in working a project that may be even adjacent to this environmental and health safety, then I now have a repository that I can use through an MCP server to pull into that context and generate that code. So that's how we're thinking about it, and how we plan on in terms of the acceleration piece.
Makes sense.
I've never come across that idea of a prompt repository. It's such a 2025 thing, isn't it? That just didn't exist before.
Yes.
Where are you storing that?
Where are we storing our prompt repository?
Yeah.
Yeah, so locally we are storing it in a data store that we have created there, and so we have it. We're still maturing our prompt repository, but and that's how we are, and then using the MCP on top of that whenever we need to connect. If you think about DXC, we have hundreds of projects, and so each project may not need the full repository of prompts that we create. So we're using that what we call a context prompting engine in order to bring to the project, bring to the account the right level of artifacts that's needed, whether that's prompts or standards and things of that nature.
Yeah, one thing I'm always curious about is how you kind of start to build best practice around prompting and start to share that good practice. Obviously, you've got this repository, which is so handy because you can kind of pick that stuff up. But how do you do the other part of it, which is make sure that people are constantly kind of improving or learning from each other?
Yeah, we're still working through that as it relates to improving and working through I guess the feedback loop and using the context prompting engine. Part of what the plan is that we would have that visibility across prompts and what's effective, and that full end-to-end traceability and observability across. I use this prompt there, this prompt gave me this output, and now um, kind of ranking those prompts to say this, if this is the output that you desire, this is the prompt to be used there. So that's how we're thinking about it and approaching solving the problem. We're doing it at scale, so that's the other challenge, right? As I told you, all of the projects that we have. So yeah.
Nice. We've still not had any questions through, so if anyone has any questions for Angela, don't be shy. There is a Q&A function at the bottom, but until then, me and Matt are going to keep peppering her.
Okay.
Matt, is there anything else on this part that you wanted to dig into?
Not specifically on this part. I definitely have some higher level questions, but I'll hold on to those for now, and we can move into this the TSDs and the next part here.
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead, Angela.
Yeah, maybe I show the next kind of approach, and if I build this up a little bit, we have what we call, or we're prototyping what we call a Teams agent. What that agent does is basically allows you to capture activity in Teams. So Microsoft has developed what we call a Teams AI SDK. And so within every Teams call, you can record the transcript and you can get the transcript and make insights from that transcript. And so what we're doing as a baseline is we're building this Teams agent such that as an application, if I'm in a agile meeting or scrum call, a daily scrum, and I want to capture from that daily scrum what happens such that it becomes a part of my artifacts, then I would use something like this Teams agent to capture the transcript and then maybe connect to an MCP in order to get additional data and provide that back to my Scrum Master as they're leading the project. So our focus across the SDLC, our philosophy across the SDLC is how do I reduce friction? And reducing friction may come through my code generators that I use, like Augment Code. Reducing friction may also come through the customized agents that we build, like this one here. And so I have some part of the implementation that we started. And so I'll start actually with just showing you the TSD, because the TSD becomes an important part of how we are using this across the SDLC. It becomes an artifact that's used from development. It becomes an artifact that's used in testing here. And so this is just a high-level TSD that we have for this that is and I'll close this out so we can see, across a Teams agent that we're using the Microsoft Bot framework in order to do. And you can see our objectives. We want to create for the team-based command and collaboration there, but also do things like I want to be able to take this agent and assign them to something in the backlog that they can, maybe provide boilerplate code that I can review, right? That's the kind of the implementation that we're looking. And so you can see of what we have in terms of key components and how we're looking at the functional flow. But that becomes a part of how we start the project, right? Before we even get into Augment, we're setting up how we're going to define that. And then, as I come into Augment, the way that we are configured, and I'll just take you over to my settings so you can see how we set up an Augment. We use a couple of standard MCP servers that are out there here, and those standard MCP servers are Context 7, Sequential Thinking, and Playwright there. Context 7 just so that we have the latest and greatest as it relates to the programming language. Sequential thinking is probably more of my favorite than it is the teams. I don't know if we've gotten all the teams to adopt this, but you'll see how it goes when I trigger this agent. And then Playwright for testing. Some of the other tools and standards we definitely would love to pull in GitHub right now. I know that we use GitHub Enterprise, and so we don't have that full integration, but as soon as that's available, we definitely will leverage those tools here. From the perspective of rules, so again, hundreds of teams, what we have in the platform is the ability to standardize these rules by the team using. So you may have a team that is React and Node, and I have a set of rules, or I am just providing long range support to a .NET application. I have a set of rules. So I pulled up a set of rules just so that you can see what our rule sets are looking like. And so this is just a context-aware rule set that we have that is saying things like, anytime that you bring a new code, I want you to require tests. And I want you to require those tests at 80% coverage. And here are the linters that I want you to use. And here are some of the security things that I want you to check. So these are rules that we provide to the teams to really help them make sure that they're producing like quality code as they generate there.
Yeah, we as an industry we talk about guardrails a lot, but it's very seldom that we actually see the guardrails, and so it's kind of, that's what you're laying out here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And so I'll take it for a swim, and I'm gonna change this just to Sonnet here, and I'm going to ask it to provide me an overview of what's been implemented. If I can spell correctly.
I mean, typing live in a demo is high stress.
Yes. And I should have kicked this off and let it run. And I'm using just the auto agent, and I'm using it because I want you just to see what it does from an agent perspective. I may not be able to fully generate code, but just how the agent behaves, I think, is a really, really powerful thing to see as it goes through. You're seeing that it's reading files across project status and phase 3 of what I've implemented. Now, part of what we were getting to is, as these our AI tools generate code, like as an example, Augment Code is generating our code. At the completion, we're going to have this is what we've done. Now that becomes a part of artifacts that we can then pull into our CI/CD pipeline to have. Now this is a part of my repository of knowledge that I can go, so that now, end to end, whether it's I'm developing here, or I have maybe an agent outside of VS Code that's a part of my pipeline. Now it has the access to the artifacts of what's been developed that it can hit against here. So you'll see, and then you asked a question about why do we think junior developers, it's accelerating them. Like, I'm a junior developer and I get this new code base. I remember being a junior developer and I was like, what is this? And sticking in that what is this phase for like a week. So now you're able to really like get what this is, and what everything is doing in my code base. And so you see what's been implemented, and I can I can kick off the phases. One of the things that we also do is we put it in chunks of phases, right? And that's how we are training our developers to not just when you're implementing, I mean, keep it as if it's a junior developer. You wouldn't have a junior developer develop everything in one shot. You maybe break it down in pieces. And so you'll see that I've broken it down in pieces of what to develop. And I'm going to I have a plan that we previously talked through, and you can see the things that it's now going to implement in that plan there. Yeah. So I'll pause there and I'll kick off something else, and I'll turn it back over to you, Scott and Matt, just in case you have a question here.
Yeah, you alluded earlier to, this was right at the beginning of our conversation, about context being important. And I think what you've just demonstrated here is not just like an AI agent that is going away and generating code, but actually it's illustrating an understanding of the entire repository, and it's summarizing in a way like, here's where we're at, right? But naturally, if that understanding exists, it can also use that understanding to its benefit when it comes to actually generating the new code. And so I wanted to kind of qualify when you mentioned that you found context being important to you in an agent. Is this the kind of thing that you're talking about? This like code base understanding that the agent can speak back to you and can actually use when it goes away to write code as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'll tell you that we have evaluated quite a bit of the code generators, and Augment Code does that very well. And so that's the combination of the process, right? How I'm going to approach in terms of development and breaking down that context, and then Augment actually taking context across the full repo has really been good. It's worked well in terms of the development process.
Great. I mean, that was cool. That was really cool to see when it started really cooking there. It was like, oh yeah, there's so much context here. And doing it over, conference hotel Wi-Fi must have been quite high stress. So I'm glad it got through it. Yeah, Matt, I've only kind of got like kind of broader questions. Is there anything else you wanted to dig into here, or should we switch it up?
Yeah, I think let's switch it up. I also have a few high level questions I'd love to touch on that I've kind of picked up through the course of the conversation.
Yeah, you shoot. You go first.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to zero in a little bit on when you say, become native AI or AI native, exactly what that means. Like, I think we've got some hints of it, and we've even, seen it in the demo, right? Like, I'm like, am I right in picking up it's, involving AI and everything that you're doing in like a first pass? Like, I think the analyzing call logs with AI to draw up your requirements is a great one. Like, maybe you don't take those requirements as like, this is it, we don't need to touch it again. You still like review that and iterate, but the point in the process is that you let an agent or a model go away and do it initially and see what you can save by doing so. Is that the sort of the concept to you as AI native?
Yeah, absolutely. And as you saw in the Teams agent that we're building with Converge, like we really want to enable that to, because we're capturing content like this call, it is going to have a transcript. We're going to be able to capture context from it. And so we're trying to do that across, all of our projects, capture that context so that you have our agents that we're using can now have a really good understanding across what we're building. And so yes, absolutely. Like let AI take a first pass. It's important to say that our view is that the human is still important, right? And so you still need to, whatever is created through these AI tools, we still need to validate and verify, that we haven't drifted and that we are, creating what we intended to. And so, but but yes, you hit it correctly.
Yeah. Where do you think this is going next? I mean, you called yourself a visionary. You mentioned autonomy in the software development life cycle. We're talking about a few things here where it's not just AI for code generation, it's for understanding the code base, it's for analyzing call logs, it's at the start in the ideation, the requirements phase. Where do you think there's significant opportunity moving forward? Like, where are you hopeful to go and plug in agents into the life cycle at DXC?
Yeah. So, first of all, agents across the full SDLC. So whether that's requirements or architecture or design, our view is that we have the ability to plug in either through agents that we create, so our DXC IP, or even our partners. Like, we don't want to, there's companies like yourself with Augment, there's other companies out there that you all are rapidly innovating more faster than we ever could. So we want to pull in the best of that breed, but it's all about how can I improve the tool that exists across my SDLC. In doing so, I see a world where it's more natural in terms of development, a world where this conversation becomes code, like as an example. And when we talk about where the human sits in terms of validating and really understanding what has been created there before it becomes a part of production.
Yeah. Yeah, so I love the idea of removing toil, and there's some clear outcomes of doing that, even in quite shocking ways, like a year project turning to 10 days at least to get the beta version. And you said that you've seen the results of how even just like coding assistants are impacting. I'm curious, like, what kind of results or signals are we really talking about here? Like, we've talked about reducing friction. Like, is there a particular metric? Like, I'm sure project delivery is maybe one, but is there other time savings or costs that you think are interesting as like these are the high level metrics we can point to as this is what we're affecting in doing all of this?
Yeah, so the way that we are measuring it is through two ways, right? And those two ways are through our agile KPIs that talk mostly about speed and quality, right? And so we're trying to optimize those. The other is through Dora that talks really about our deployment there. The challenge that we have, and it's interesting, I'm at the conference that I'm at that we've been having these conversations, is that a lot of people take productivity for cost savings, and we're just not at that level of where our productivity are making our teams go faster directly translate to cost savings. And I'll give you a very simple example, hopefully to illustrate. Like, let's say that I have a car and I buy a new car that allows me to go 30% faster. I still have the same distance between here and my work. So I'm not saving cost on fuel or there. I'm saving on time. And so I can take that 30% and now maybe I can stop and get Starbucks. So now that I'm able to get to work faster, I can now stop by Starbucks, and now I'm happier when I get there. And so what we're trying to really translate into what we're able to do with the savings of toll is how much more productive, or what you can do with now that you've made teams more efficient there. So hopefully that story helped to illustrate. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that analogy. And, as you're thinking about getting more people there, you said you've got, 15,000 software engineers at DXC, 40% goal for them to be deeply trained. That immediately got me curious. Like, what's that threshold? Like, what do you call deeply trained? I'm sure that's more than just being handy with code completions, for example. Like, what does that look like to you?
Yeah, so we have a full path end to end in terms of what it means to be an agentic software engineer. We are we are looking at the outcome that those 40% can then produce. The various layers that we have is first not only just leveraging proper prompt engineering there, but being able to leverage these agents across the SDLC. Here goes across each one. When you get to the upper levels, it's really understanding how we can pull multi-agent systems together in order to drive that value for our clients. And so our process again goes through various layers of what that means to be an agentic software engineer and what that training and enablement looks like across the SDLC.
Nice. Matt, I've only got one wrap-up question, so unless you've got any more, I'll ask it.
Oh, shoot. Go for it.
Andrew, I always like to wrap these up with just like what advice would you give to someone who's kind of maybe just starting out here? You're quite far along the journey here using these various tools and kind of getting real value out of them. But for someone who's a bit earlier in the journey, what advice would you give them?
My advice remains the same, like even before AI. I think it's the same thing. That is, fail and fail fast, because you learn so much from failing fast. Not that you're focused on failing, but be okay with you know pulling using the various tools and it not working, because at least you get closer to what will work there. And the second thing is like have curiosity. I don't We would not be leveraging Augment Code if it wasn't for the curiosity first for Susan of, how can I really solve this problem that these other code generators are having a gap, and just really going out there and testing and evaluating. And then me, picking up to say, okay, now is this going to solve this problem? And so those would be the two things, have curiosity, like don't be afraid of these tools. You can always put them in a controlled environment and really test and understand them. And then the second one, be okay with failing, but just fail fast when doing it.
Don't forget the fundamentals.
Yes, yes.
Nice. Well, Angela, thank you so much for your time today. I've really enjoyed kind of hearing more about the work you've been doing and the ways that you've been doing them. I think it's always cool to see the way that you're working with these tools, especially like the way that you're building context, the way that you're building guardrails, the way that you've been kind of like trying to really democratize the use of these tools across DXC. It's really been interesting to see, and I hope that people have learned a bunch. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Augment Code. We're not finished yet. We have same time next week. We've got our next session with Wojtek Troki from MongoDB. He's doing some really interesting work building kind of persona-based agents. So not just for the coding part of the task, but also across, as Angela said earlier, across the SDLC. So whether it's like an SRE specific agent or various other things, I won't ruin it. I'll let him do the talking next week, but definitely tune in. Thanks to everyone who tuned in live, and see you next week. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks very much. Bye.